And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking the British Grand Prix fallout. All of the news coming out of the British Grand Prix. So, welcome. What do we have for you? Well, we have Hamilton. He actually feared, and he said this in the post-race interview, that he would never win again. Pray tell, I imagine some of his rivals, and even I think his most staunch supporters, maybe had that question at some point over the last 2 years. We've got Heartache for George Russell. He knew he was going to be out a fair while before we knew he was going to be out of the race. Oh, Lando, it is so close. We are going to get into why Lando Norris did not win the British Grand Prix. McLaren got greedy, according to Mr. Stella, and Max thought, although I can't spell right, as you can see, thought he would finish sixth. So let's get into that first story then about Lewis Hamilton. I mean, first of all, absolute congratulations to Lewis Hamilton. I mean, what an absolute sensational race. It was amazing, wasn't it? It really, really was. So Hamilton, he feared he would never be winning again amid this 945-day F1 victory. Nearly 1,000 days, not shy of 1,000 days. So the seven-time champion secured his first win since Saudi Arabia 2021. That slightly controversial race with him and Max Verstappen. But he admitted to us all, days where I didn't feel like I was good enough, and that was amid his Formula 1 win drought, which is no more. And that ended in thrilling fashion at the Grand Prix, with Max Verstappen chasing him down and Lando Norris third. So in what was a dry wet Silverstone race, as only Britain can, summer showers continue to affect, let's be fair, the whole weekend. Hamilton made the most of Mercedes taking the whip in his hand, and he did the opposite of Leclerc, really forceful about those strategy calls. He then preserved his soft tyres to ensure what was a rapidly catching Dutchman, and that rapidly catching Dutchman was kept very much at bay, and ultimately ended his 945-day losing streak. Well, not winning streak, let's say. So overwhelmed with emotion in the aftermath, Hamilton admitted that there were days when he thought he would never win again in F1, and thanked the whole Mercedes team in what was quite an emotional moment, I think, for everyone at Silverstone, all of Lewis Hamilton's fans, especially even when he hugged his dad. How can you not smile about that? So he said, it's so tough, I think, for anyone, Hamilton said. But I think the important thing is just how you continue to get up in this, and you have to continue to dig deep, even when you feel like you're at the bottom of the barrel. There's definitely been days, he said, between 2021 and now, where I didn't feel like I was good enough, or where I was going to get back to where I am today. But the important thing is I have great people around me, he said, continuing to support me. My team, every time I turn up and see them put in the effort, that really encouraged me to do the same thing. Oh, Lewis, I mean, yeah, well done. It's just brilliant. Everyone I know was ecstatic. Even some of the, even the Max Verstappen fans are ecstatic. I wouldn't say ecstatic, but it was hard to hide a smile. And that man finished second in what was an absolutely fantastic race. More on that in a bit. But heartache for George Russell. Yeah, apparently he knew it was game over long before his retirement. So from pole position to retired, we're not going from zero to hero or hero to zero, because it wasn't. It wasn't like Canada for George. But his British Grand Prix was a challenging one. He led from the beginning, and I think he was fourth when he pretty much called it quits with what was a water system plaguing his Mercedes car. Now, speaking to media after the race, Russell, he said that the whole thing was a real blow of having a car that could win the home Grand Prix. At the time and at the beginning, everyone thought, once you saw that Mercedes pace, it was kind of George's race to lose, as a Mercedes driver secured pole position ahead of the race that looked set to favour the Brackley-based outfit. However, lap 34 came and he was instructed, I think it was all surprising to us, with his W15 to retire it with what was a suspected water system issue. And speaking to media, including this article here, which I'm getting from planetf1.com, he admitted that his W15 had begun to exhibit some concerning symptoms long before he was told to go back into garage. He said, 10 laps before the failure, I knew I had problems. I was losing power, And then, yeah, water system failure, no water to the engine. It's currently unclear if Mercedes were able to retire the W15 engine before before any significant damage was done to the engine. Now, according to Russell, both race pace and strategy were impressive until it all went wrong. And regarding his pole position start, he said, it's always difficult when you're first out there. I knew it was going to be a long race and sort of wanted to be patient. Later, touching on the moment when rain began to fall, and both Mercedes drivers did a Malaysia, I think 2001, when both Ferraris went off on the lead. He said, it was difficult, but I wasn't flustered. In this case, both Mercedes maintained their positions. And then George got passed by Lando. But again, he reiterated that his patience resulted in the fact that I knew the race was going to be long, and later Russell and Hamilton engaged in what was a double stack stop. Pay attention, McLaren, where both races they swapped to intermediate tyres. Russell was in the rear of the stack and really re-emerged. Max Verstappen, who had pitted one lap earlier, had got past him, and as soon as that happened, Norris said he was starting to lack power. So, yeah, excuse me, I feel for you. I feel for you, George. So, Norris, he and McLaren have, by their own admission, thrown away the win with the British Grand Prix strategy calls. Yeah, he felt deflated. You saw that at the end of the race. He was after, celebrating, shaking Lewis's hand, for example, he looked particularly down and admitted that the frustration that he and McLaren knew they had thrown away a potential win. Just like they did I didn't throw away a potential win in Austria. They could have won in Austria. They potentially threw away a win in Spain as well. But although Norris lost position to Verstappen on that opening lap, the McLaren driver began to grow into the race. He got more and more confident as those conditions worsened, and his big pace ended up getting by Verstappen, and then later on Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, and he looked in control of the race. The tyre temperature retention of the McLaren seemed to be really, really good. The handling of the McLaren seemed to be really good in the wet. However, he was undone by the crossover to slicks towards the end of the race. He ended up losing the lead to Hamilton because he stopped a lap later, but I think he lost the lead as well because he went forward on his pit stop, and his pit stop ended up being 2 seconds faster than it should have been. He came out about 2 seconds behind Hamilton in the end. Now, Norris stated after the race that he and the team are not making the right decisions, but at the same time, I blame myself for not making some of the right decisions. Think Russia 2021 haunting him again. He said, I hate it. I hate ending in this position and having excuses for not doing a good enough job. I think George, once again, he showed he was really good in Austria. He showed he's a good racer. He passed Verstappen cleanly. Verstappen raced. I always think Verstappen was kind of like a bit lackluster. He was like, yeah, go past. Where was the stern defence? But fair play to Verstappen. You can't argue with anyone here about the racing. It was very clean. Lando later added so many things were going well, and we threw it away in the final stop. It was one lap, but I also think I don't think it was the lap. I think even if I boxed on the perfect lap, my decision to go onto the soft, and this is the other significant thing, onto the soft was the wrong one, and I think Lewis would still have won no matter what. 2 calls from our side cost us everything today, so especially it's pretty disappointing. Yeah, had Lando gone onto the medium tyres like McLaren initially suggested, like Piastri was like, yep, medium tyres straight away, I think he may have had enough pace to hunt down Hamilton. Now, Norris felt that McLaren had lagged behind the Mercedes in the first stint when the conditions were more damp. The MCL38, which is the name of the McLaren car, started to improve as the conditions, I think, worsened, really. But although he felt that McLaren had not been the outright fastest among the people of the racing, where it had contended for victory, he underlined his frustration that he'd not added to his Miami victory yet. He just said, we weren't quick enough today. I think they were. I think Mercedes were quick enough today to win. And I think in a parallel universe, if you believe in that, there is a Lando Norris victory at the British Grand Prix. And Andrea Stella's even come out and he's admitted that McLaren were perhaps too greedy during their British Grand Prix, and that ultimately that hurt their chances for what could have been a 1-2 finish at Silverstone. Now, with the drivers half a second from each other, we had the rain coming down. McLaren faced an unenviable and pressure-building decision whether to double stack their cars. Mercedes did to great success, but Piastri stayed out, which was obviously not the right thing to do. And I said in our initial race review when we talked about winners and losers, etc., that We have the data. They have all the data. They've got all the intelligence. And when it's really obvious what to do, when you're sitting on the couch, yeah, I know in hindsight it's easy, but when you're sitting on the couch and you're screaming at the TV, pit both of them, stack both of them, and they don't, it's just, I don't get it. I don't get it. Unless they were convinced it was not going to rain, the rain was going to stop, and they were edging their bets, maybe. But yeah. But Stella conceded that they should have double pitted, even if it would have cost them time. Like, you think? We should have pushed harder for the double stack, he said. Because by delaying Oscar's stop by 1 lap, we lost much more time than we lost in the double stack. Yes. So in hindsight, he said that was the right thing to do. Stop both cars at the same time. We take the learning from this experience and we'll do better next time. I'm sure you will. But to be fair, once again, McLaren, where they came from, even at the beginning of the year, they've absolutely done fantastic. And Fantastic Max. I think that was a kids' show, wasn't it? Fantastic Max. But he wasn't he? He thought he'd finish 5th or 6th. And we all thought so too. When you looked at his race pace at the beginning of the race, the Grand Prix, it wasn't particularly very good. It was just about top 5, top 6 pace, wasn't it? And he himself said he thought he'd finish 5th or 6th. He said he was passed by both McLaren cars in the dry, in the early stages, in the wet. So 5th, he ran 5th initially, moving up from 4th to 3rd, behind what were the early leaders for both Mercedes. But Verstappen's call and went to pit on the inters in the race, on the race's second and longest storm, and he jumped back to 3rd. That was absolutely pivotal. Leaving McLaren's Oscar Piastri out on an extra lap really hurt McLaren and really helped Verstappen's chances. But when it came for pitting a second time to go back to the slicks, as the sun burst out, he came in the same time as Hamilton, which was the optimal time, but significantly he went on the harder tyre. As we mentioned in our race review, the harder tyre, it is risky because it warms up a lot slower than the soft. The soft will almost give you instant grip very quickly coming out the pits after a few corners. The hard tyre, you got to embed it. So he showed some skill by not going off the track. It would have been difficult. But then, because the track's so green and abrasive, because you've got all the rubber washed off, the tyre will wear, the softer tyre is going to wear more. So he was catching and catching and catching. And fortunately, that he caught Norris, but not Hamilton. Good for the Hamilton fans in Silverstone, I think, on the whole, that he didn't. That we had a British winner at Silverstone, but still, he did nearly spoil the party. And I think what looked like 5th or 6th, it was Verstappen and his calls that really, really made the difference. And that stint on the hard tyre was brilliant as well. Man of the race, obviously, completely deserved. It was Lewis Hamilton, I think. Honourable mention definitely for Max Verstappen and Nico Hülkenberg. But that's pretty much it. That's the big news coming straight after the race. There may well be another one come Monday evening, Tuesday morning, etc. If you liked what you see, please give us a subscribe, give us a thumbs up. That would be absolutely amazing. And we'll speak to you soon.